What is going on, FUD Nation, and welcome back to a very, very special episode of FUD TV, where we have our good friend, none other than Eric Crown. We're going to talk about the state of the market. There's been a lot of excitement with Litecoin pumping, BNB pumping, the whole market drenched in green, and everyone is thinking the exact same thing. Is this the beginning of something great? Something bullish? More importantly, we're going to identify three very critical things that we want to see to absolutely confirm that this bear trend is over. So strap in, FUD Nation. You are not going to want to miss this very special episode of FUD TV featuring our very good friend, Eric Crown. Welcome back to the show, none other than Eric Crown from Crown's Crypto Cave. It's been a minute, but we're very excited to have him back. How you doing, Mr. Crown?
Hey, Elliot, how you doing? And it is a pleasure to be back here on FUD TV once again. Pleasure to see everyone as well. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, today's been a very exciting day. Obviously, there's been a little bit of excitement in the market. Lady Litecoin, as she is so called on your channel, has been making a move. Lady Litecoin, Bitcoin, the whole market seems to be drenched in green, and there's just been this consolidation. You know, partly for me, it sort of reminds me of what was going on in the late fall of last year, the consolidation around the 6K mark. You know, and I guess what I really want to know is, what do you think's going on here? Let's dive into these markets and give us your expert opinion as to, is this another repeat of this 6K consolidation that's going to just break our hearts and dump downwards, or is there potentially another end or resolution to this story?
Alrighty, so I guess you just want to jump right into the charts right off the bat. Let's do it. Let me
Let's do it, man.
Trusty charts right over here.
We could talk about something else, though, if you want. We could talk about
all good, man. Let's get into it right now. Let's see. And there she is. Okay, beautiful. Alrighty, so here we are. Here's our lovely chart of Mr. Bitcoin. And when you're talking about this and relating this to being a similar consolidation, like we saw above 6,000 right here for about a year, I would, I'd kind of have to agree with that, man. There are a lot of similarities between this, and why I say that is because overall, when I'm looking at Bitcoin, we haven't seen any sort of change in behavior. And that's really what I'd want to focus on in a video like this. Can Bitcoin switch around the market cycle? Absolutely. But when I'm, as a trader, as an analyst, I need to see proof first, not some sort of, delusional hopium, which has some basis, absolutely. But at the end of the day, when we go through it, you'll see very quickly that none of the macro picture has changed. And overall, when we look at this on a higher time frame, like a 3-day right here, you can say very quickly that this consolidation right here has all the characteristics of very constructive price action. You see the volume falling off from left to right. You see the price action in a very constructive manner. And overall, this would be a consolidation on the lows, which is typically not a good sign. Very similar to what we saw right over here, just, a little bit of a different formation, which is of less importance. But for now, when I'm looking at something like this on the higher time frames, I see a lot of very bearish setups. Does that mean that I think Bitcoin is going to go straight on down from here at 3,800 to, lower lows? No, I don't. In fact, I'm actually kind of short-term bullish on Bitcoin right now. To be quite frank with you, I think that Bitcoin can spend many more months in this range, filling out all the space between here and low 4,000s and low 3,000s. That can take some time, but as far as the macro picture goes, nothing's changed. So going back on over to the weekly, this is probably the biggest thing and the easiest thing for anyone to grasp right now. And looking at this purple 200 exponential that I'm currently pointing to right now at 4,100, that has been governing all of our highs ever since Bitcoin essentially initiated this very aggressive dump in late November right here. Mm-hmm. Ever since then, we've been stuck below it and respecting that as resistance. So my first sort of macro trigger is that as long as we are below this area, as long as we are both opening and closing candlesticks below this area, I would be not of the opinion that anything's changed. Now, of course, if Bitcoin actually did both open and close above this 200 exponential at 4,100, again, this purple line right here, then I would drastically change my I should say my medium-term outlook. But of course, there are a couple bigger things, a couple more bigger pieces to the puzzle, and that is this guy right here. And I'm going to put it on the BLX index. As I explain this, and this is where it really becomes a lot more visually apparent to me. And going off that conversation that you first began with regards to consolidation, when we look at this right here, can see very easily and very quickly that we are just consolidating below this 50 exponential moving average, this green moving average right here, which is very powerful in traditional markets. And the fact that we found some comfort below it, in fact, even on today's rally, just wicking up and testing this area and so far selling off, um, I would be very skeptical of this, as anytime when we look at on the lower time frames and can confirm that as a consolidation, when I look at a time frame like this, it's very obvious right here. And what I'm now looking to kind of judge this consolidation in the way that it's likely to be resolved, or at least the overall feeling of it, are these two moving averages that you see right here. That the red one is a 10 simple, and the yellow one is a 21 exponential. And what they're telling me right now is they're saying that as long as we are beholden by this 50 exponential moving average, which again is on a monthly, so it's going to take a long time to really resolve itself. But as long as we're below it, as long as we're closing below it, then I would look to these guys to tell me what that consolidation is likely to do. And if we get a lower period crossing the downside of a higher period, then that's likely to be going to be the impetus for sending this consolidation and giving it the jet fuel to actually break onto new lows. Now, as you can see, this takes a long time. These are monthlies right here. So we quite literally pretty much just got a new one for March. My God, this year is going by exponentially fast, man. It is actually scary. But more importantly, the next macro trigger that I'm looking for on top of the weekly would actually be very simply this yellow 21 exponential moving average right here. In general markets, which is where I come from, what I would do is I would use the 21 exponential on the monthly to judge if something was generally bullish or generally bearish. If you're above it, you're generally bullish. If you're below it, you're generally bearish. And actually backtesting it with Bitcoin, you can see that the last bear market, we broke it down right here. And then the second that Bitcoin actually closed right back above it, that, in my opinion, would have been the perfect re-entry into a bull market. Why do I say that? Because, well, actually, after that point in time, you were actually moving to the upside. So you weren't stuck in a sideways market for a year where your money is essentially dead. You have to be thinking opportunity cost.
Mhm.
But you're actually in a market that's moving to the upside. Now, if Bitcoin could get back above the 21 exponential, which is all the way at 5,200, I would immediately change around my whole disposition on this market. The third and final and
And
biggest,
quickly, how long did
yeah,
it stand below? How long did it stay below the 21
over
exponential
here.
on the last bear market?
Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, a little bit over a year. And this is actually a good segue into another conversation. But before we get into that conversation, I do want to say that the third and final and most important macro trigger would basically be getting back above the 6,000 level, the area that we spent so much time going sideways upon. So as long as those three things have not happened, I don't really consider that a low is in, because the main things that I look for a major market cycle low are just not present as of the current moment in time. So if those three things get happen, then yes, I would essentially be bullish. I mean, I would be bullish if we just even open and close above the weekly 200. Anyways, as far as your question about this area right here and how long we spent below it in the past market cycle, that's actually a really good segue into another conversation, because as assets mature, as we see Bitcoin mature and the market cap grows and more people get involved and it becomes more mainstream, and people, and everyone's, got their hand in the pie or their hand in the cookie jar, whatever the hell that saying is. Um, the market cycles are going to take longer because there's more people to work through. The books are going to be thicker, so there's just more, price is going to move slower in general. I mean, the volatility in this area is actually more than what we saw in this past year, funnily enough. But it, over time, it'll get less and less relative to the past prior market cycle. Anyways, that's also why that's also why I'm in no real rush to be jumping in and declaring that the bear market is over. Like, I think a lot of people might be a little bit too cavalier with saying right now. I want to see this actually put in a lot of sideways at this level if this is going to be the low. For right now, I'd say that there are more indications that it is not. In fact, we have broken this green 50 exponential moving average for the first time in Bitcoin's history over the last 3 months. So to me, this is more indicative of something new going on, rather than we put in a low and it's about to rally back on to high heaven. To me, this is indicative of consolidation as these two moving averages approach each other, and likely going to take its time, but as long as those major triggers that we spoke about on the macro scale are not hit, I would be looking for that to eventually be resolved to the downside.
So to recap here, from a
Yeah.
macro perspective, things are looking like the term that was being sort of thrown about a little bit earlier was secondary bear market, as if that there's like a second dimension to this bear market, and that sort of yeah, and that sort of feels like what you're spelling out right now is that, hey, yeah, we had this huge bear market trend play out, then we got the dagger
Right.
down to 3K, and now we're seeing a months long resolution of this price level before what all intensive purposes looks like is going to be another break downwards. And yeah, it's very clear that things are moving more slowly, and that's just kind of I guess the evolution of the market in general. The first bull run to bear market to bull run was extremely fast in Bitcoin, months,
Yeah.
and then the second one took a couple years, and now this one, it's looking like it will be at least as long, if not longer, than the last bear market. And so where would that put us in the market cycle? That would kind of put us still in the first trimester here of this bear market, maybe in maybe not even quite at halfway. So I think is that fair based on what you're saying, that we could still be in the first half of this bear market?
Yeah, it's definitely possible, man. I think one thing that many people have failed to consider, or that at least I'd want to consider, is that this is likely going to take a very long time. Um, Even when Bitcoin does put in the ultimate low, you're likely to get a nice sideways action for probably around a year. Um, so again, when looking at something like that, that's something that people, what I typically notice is a lot of people will get very lost on like a daily time frame, thinking that this is a higher time frame. This is not a high time frame. I mean, this over here looks like we've actually done some things, but again, when you go straight over to the monthly, you can see very clearly that very little has actually been done as far as this perspective goes. So that's what I really be offering up. And you said it perfectly, man. The mark cycles just get exponentially longer. And what I say that we're in basically in the first half, I'd say that that's a little bit harder to say. I mean, overall, that past market cycle was what? It was about from top to turnaround to confirm turnaround was about 3 years. Yeah, 730 days. Sorry, about 2 years.
A little
So
over, yeah, a little over 2 years.
yeah, we're about a year into ours right now. I'd say, we're probably not halfway there. If we're only into a year right now, it's probably going to take longer.
And what you said was, I think, critical, which is once we hit those lows, by the way, going up slower, going down slower, once we do hit those lows, we're going
Right.
to go sideways for what looks like the better part of a year, if not a year, and there's no confirmation that we have hit a low yet. And so we're not even at the let's wait a year part of this. And I don't want this to be extremely bearish, because we're going to talk about some other things going on in the market soon. And I just wanted to have this reiteration of what's going on, because I keep seeing this, the headlines: bull market back, all green numbers, it's time to stop being so pessimistic. And it's not about pessimism, right? There's a certain responsibility we have as content creators in the space to give good information. And if what the good information is saying is, yeah, I don't know, like, definitely don't put your college fund into this, definitely don't put your pension fund at risk right now, because it might get cut in half or a third, then that's sort of just what the numbers are saying. And yeah, that's just sort of where we're at. But I did want to talk about a few more things that, based on a mix of things you've been saying and things I've been feeling, is the concept of decoupling, because this has been something that everybody is obsessed with, right? So
Yeah.
why is Bitcoin's movement, deterministic of every other coin in the market? And I wanted to ask you, are there any coins that you feel have been in some way decoupled from Bitcoin, and have some way hold a different fate than Bitcoin?
Yeah, there's two that really stand out right now. One is who I refer to as Mrs. Litecoin in a very lovingly way, but she is doing something different. This chart right here is basically when I spoke about Bitcoin getting back above 6,000, the area that it's been a long time essentially grinding before breaking down. Litecoin is actually pretty much above that area, that same concurrent area, which would be about $51. You see it using the 21 over here, the yellow 21 exponential as support. That's a very good sign. Overall, there's a lot of good things going on here, and this one, for all intents and purposes, tells me that Mrs. Litecoin, if there is going to be decoupling in this market, this is it. Also, the other one that stands out is BNB, Binance Coin. I don't have a strong opinion on it, like fundamentally speaking, but just to show you its chart, it's doing something completely different than the overall market. I mean, versus US dollar doesn't look as impressive, but versus Bitcoin, it's in a blue sky breakout. Which again, do you really want to be plotting something against a another downwards asset? Probably not the best way to be doing it. But even versus the dollar, well above this area right here, the $9.60 area that it spent a lot of time going sideways on, and a clear breakout, good volume on it. This is what you want to see. This is what I'd want to see for Bitcoin to be more in your face. Hey, this is, we have a change of behavior now, so pay attention. With
And
Bitcoin, we don't see that signature just yet.
as much as unfortunately news seems to be almost ineffective at moving the markets, Binance is actually working on some fundamental changes here with the launch of their own chain, and the fundamental utility that they're bringing to their coin, and its sort of centrality within that new decentralized exchange. Or people don't like call it decentralized exchange because it's not as decentralized as other things, but essentially they're bringing a whole lot more utility to their coin. And so there's like a weird mix with Binance of actually being some fundamentals and actually having some chart reaction to it, which for some reason seems almost out of the norm and insane. So yeah, I mean, it would be very interesting to see if both Litecoin and BNB can defy gravity, as it were, and continue to grow. I mean, that would be absolutely,
Yeah.
maybe hoping on a dream there, but it would be very interesting to see how that works.
Well, what I think would be so interesting is if we had a bullish Litecoin and a bearish Bitcoin. That would be the first time in history, as far as I know, where they're actually in quite literally different market cycles. So it's going to be a question of, does Litecoin have the power to put the market in its backpack and carry it essentially? Because we just don't see the other top majors doing anything like this right now. I guess the closest maybe is EOS, but even that is not. It doesn't look as good as this.
I,
Everything else is basically either bearish or kind of neutral.
I guess the question would just be why. Like
Yeah,
why?
well,
Is Litecoin just
yeah,
more
man.
undervalued in the market? Are the market movers just looking at Litecoin as a way to take advantage? And maybe that's a good segue into something I'd like to
There's
talk about, which is
yeah,
what are the forces at work here, and what are they doing? Because people are taking advantage of this market. You're doing it. You're making money in this market, which I think might befuddle and baffle a lot of the audience to
mhm,
understand that your portfolio looks significantly better than it did when the bull market ended. I've seen you make some amazing trades, and I know that you take advantage of the moves both up and down. So what are the market makers actually doing? Like, what are they looking for? Because it seems like these little run ups to resistances and then getting beaten down are kind of like these almost like choreographed dramas. It feels that way sometimes, where it just
yeah.
hits just that much of hopium to get people to start buying, and they just dump and then move down to the lower sort of targets. Like, is it possible that that's going on with Litecoin, where they're just injecting that hopium, trying to get people to think exactly what you're saying, just so they can dump on the market again?
So yeah, so for all of the nice things that I just said about Mrs. Litecoin, let me actually also talk a little bit of shit. This is a bearish pattern right here. This is typically a bearish reversal pattern. This is a ascending broadening wedge. But again, if this thing starts breaking back above $56, there's no reason, in my opinion, to be bearish on this guy. But for all intents and purposes, you do see that this resistance, we could get all the way up to $56, still reject from there, and still resolve this guy to the downside. But overall, the best chart out of them all. Volume on this also not so healthy either. But hey, give it the benefit of the doubt for now. More importantly, the reason why you see these sorts of moves in an altcoin like Litecoin is that Litecoin has, there's less people trading it. There's less liquidity in this, and that's kind of become a meme word, right? It's a fucking meme. What does it even mean? People always talk about liquidity, right? Which is kind of an overused word, and it's a very important word, but I feel like it gets thrown around a little bit too willy nilly. When we're talking about liquidity, we're talking about basically what is available in the order books. When you go into an exchange like BitMEX, Binance, Deribit, whatever it might be, you see, your order book, and it shows you the bid and the offer, and it shows you the size at those. If you go into Mrs. Litecoin on just about any exchange, there is no one trading this.
No.
I mean, the overall volume on it is very low, so you can get these more exaggerated movements due to that fact. Because when bigger people want to get involved, if you're dealing with if you're dealing with a multi-million dollar account, you can't just enter in at market, or if you do, you're gonna cost one of these. so again, it's a lot easier to create the illusions of major momentum being gained and get a lot of the retail investors into an emotional state, which is going to put them in a bad decision making space with something like this, or any alt for that matter. You typically notice that they are more emotional. Now these days you kind of actually see some alts quite literally. You are actually seeing some alts kind of die right now. For in the colloquial term, of course, nothing's going to zero, man. But I actually looked at a couple of charts on my stream this past day that I had no idea about, and man, they were it was like a heartbeat that I completely flatlined. But overall, for
Well,
Mrs.
I mean,
Litecoin, she's still
some projects are no longer functional, and for a good reason they shouldn't be
true.
actively traded. But at the same time, Litecoin is certainly never, or I don't anticipate that Litecoin would ever become one of those. That being
Yeah, I
said,
don't think it's gonna die.
I've not been hugely bullish on Litecoin because I don't quite see how it fits into the current I guess cryptocurrency ecosystem, given the sort of proliferation of quote fast quote cheap coins to sell or to trade and to transfer, whereas Bitcoin obviously has its sort of chair set up. But
Right.
all that aside, I saw Litecoin sort of depreciate so significantly that maybe this is just Litecoin sort of getting back to par with the rest of the industry, sort of being more in line with the losses that other coins have felt, or is this just would you smell a little bit of just market movers deciding to go see what they can do over with Litecoin?
There's always going to be that conversation in my mind as long as we're below the major macro areas, which for Mrs. Litecoin is $56. As long as you're below that area, I would be very careful and cautious with something like this. And there's no real rush, in my opinion, if I were looking for a long-term position in Litecoin, just because if you do get back above $56, I mean, that's, as far as I'm concerned, from a technical now standpoint, the bear market's over for Litecoin. And then you can have another very prolonged upwards move. But for right now, with all these questions, with all this uncertainty, and more importantly, with all the other major market cap coins not having the same sort of decent chart like Litecoin, it is I would be skeptical. I'd be very skeptical, and typically that is not a good sign. Um, Unless if we're truly going to see bifurcation in the market, which is always possible, but we haven't seen that. That has not been the trend. So again, it's one of those things where I need to see proof first. As a trader, as an analyst, I need to see proof. It's about looking for confirmation if you're going to be trading, major market cycles, and patience is going to be your best ally right here.
And yeah, I mean,
Compare that.
like what you
Go ahead.
said, with bifurcation, with BNB even, which feels like it's more
Hmm.
different than Litecoin from Bitcoin. The truth is that what Changpeng Zhao does is, with their profits, they buy back their coins and they burn a part of their coins, but they also convert all their profits directly into Bitcoin. So it's sort of like you can only decouple the market so much when everything is sort of based in this Bitcoin asset.
Right.
But at the same time, yeah, it would be very interesting to see. I think it would take the whole world by surprise, and I'm looking forward to the headline: Charlie Lee buys Litecoin. Yeah, when is Charlie Lee going to buy Litecoin? But yeah, I think that comes to a bigger topic that I wanted to discuss with you, which is people are here. I mean, I feel like the audience, the
Hmm.
FUD TV audience, I feel like a lot of the crypto audience is here. Maybe they're, I guess, used to this bearish trend that they don't even remember it. But people are here to make money and to better their financial situation, to earn their financial freedom. I'm sure some people are here for idealistic or philosophical reasons, but I think the vast majority of people came here for the potential of making money. How would you speak to these people who are here and potentially looking at another 1+, 2+ years of bearishness? How can people take advantage of this? How are people taking advantage of the bear market? The big movers, how can the smaller fish take advantage as well? What would you say to these people? Because you're actively doing it. What would you sort of give to people as a way to understand how they can actually harness the benefit of this industry, if at all.
Take a vacation. That's what you should do. Um, well,
Sorry,
here's the thing,
guys.
man. Again, this is why I talk about these higher time frames. Understand the perspective. Understand where the macro story changes, which is what we spoke about before. Those three things. As long as those three things have not happened from a long term perspective, if you're an investor, I don't see any real rush to get in. Now, of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But if you are going to be a long term investor, understand that there's a couple of moving parts. And I can't answer this question for you, but I can only give you the questions that might help yourself to figure it out for yourself if you already haven't. But basically, what does long term mean to you? Is that years out? Are you like on a 10-year horizon? Are you on a 20-year horizon, which is too damn long to be honest? But you never know. Everyone has different perspectives. Where are you within that perspective? Do you have other sources of income? Are you essentially liquid? Do you have will you be able to survive another how long could it be? 4 or 5 years, whatever it might be. But understand that if you are going to be that long term person and opportunity cost is not a huge concern to you, then I would be looking at these areas lower, which the big area that I have marked out right here is this blue box territory between 2300 and 2600. Whenever I see one of these major areas that I've outlined to the downside right here, which is that area that we just spoke about, then a little bit lower at 1869, and then essentially 1000, 1100 down around here. Um, it would be worth it to probably nibble a little bit. Put a little bit of your, don't blow your whole load in one go. But what you can do is have, put a little bit in. And I don't do this myself. I don't think that this is the best strategy myself. But if I was of that mind, if I was of that opinion, which I understand a lot of people to be, that's not the worst way of doing things. It can be very, very pressure off. And in fact, it would have also been a good idea to buy at this last 3200 low, as that was essentially a potential bottoming area. Could things reverse from here? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you want to be splitting things up. And even if Bitcoin were to get down all the way to the last target, which I am actually not of the opinion that Bitcoin goes all the way down to 1,000. I actually am not quite sure if I believe that Bitcoin's going to go straight down from 2,000. To be honest with you, but again, I wouldn't even have all my money in at that point in time. I would really want to be saving the majority of my money for, again, when we actually have a confirmed uptrend. That is the sort of perspective that I want to share, is that, hey, if you are a retailer person who's on a long-term horizon, as an investor, quote unquote, an investor, understand that we're probably going to have to go through a lot of this. So you can not have to sit through that. You could put your money in something else that actually is moving and be making money elsewhere, which would be satisfying the opportunity cost equation of this. But if you really did want to be a little bit more active and it really doesn't matter to you, then yes, I would suggest doing something like essentially DCAing down. Although I would really also suggest the other equation of the DCA side, which people always forget. This is what everyone gets wrong about DCA, which is hilarious. When you're
Dollar
dollar
cost
cost
average
averaging,
by, yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
when you're dollar cost averaging, and whoever made this one up, whatever, if it was Ray Dalio or Warren Buffett, I forget, but whoever said these ancient, beautiful words, dollar cost averaging, you really want to be dollar cost averaging into an upwards asset, not a downwards asset. And that probably doesn't make too much sense intuitively, as it did for myself when I first learned that. You think, oh, well, why wouldn't you invest when it's going down? Well, you don't know how long things can go down for. People were DCAing, over here, right? It's like, all right, well, that's not going to help you too much when price action's over here. It's easy in hindsight, of course, but when you're DCAing into an upwards asset, you could be buying right here, right here, right here, right here, and that's a beautiful position. I mean, that's the way that it should be done, and that's the way that those legends would do it for like the super investors. So I think that that's probably what the average retail investor is best off doing. If you are more low term time frame minded, well, at that point in time, it's actually quite easy. It's actually quite simple right here as well. I mean, even whether you're a professional trader or you're just or you're a retailer, the story has been the same for the last 3 4 months. All you had to do was buy the 200 simple and sell the 200 exponential. That's all you've had to do. And I could even go as far as saying that that's all there is to do right now. Everything that happens in between is, it's I mean, as a trader, this is not really worth it right now. If Bitcoin, just as we spoke about Bitcoin kind of initiating one of the macro features to the upside, if we both open and close a weekly above the 200 exponential at 4100, if Bitcoin closes below the 200 simple down around here, I mean that's another beautiful trade to the downside. So again, if that's for the more short term minded person, anything in the very low time frames is very difficult to trade right now. And I actually really back off it myself. I mean, I can have over here my streamer account on derivative, which I'm only trading options right now. It's a very small position to begin with, but I mean, it's good enough is good enough for that streamer account. It's a very small account in general. But that is the way that I want to do things right now with options because I can play ranges rather than these very annoying wicks and sideways action for prolonged periods of time. That's what I would not want to get stuck in. It can be very frustrating for a lot of people. And I see a lot of people getting frustrated dealing with just this very disgusting price action that we've been seeing. So again, I would say really avoid anything below even a daily is it's just not worth it right now.
So, unfortunately, for those of us who are looking to be active in the market, it's kind of a time to put those guns away, and not much to shoot at. Is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah, you want to be raising cash if you really believe in Bitcoin, and I do believe in Bitcoin long term, as well as a few other cryptocurrencies. I'm sure going to be there as well. And you are in this for the long term, then there's no real rush right now, is my opinion. You want to be raising capital so that you have it when the market is actually turned around and going in the upwards direction. Then, you can actually make the most of it. You don't need to be a damn genius to make money in a bull market. I mean, shit, man, I've been trading for a long time now. Do I have much better results trading this upwards market than like a monkey just throwing a dart at a coin market cap chart? Probably not all that much. I mean, my point is that you don't need to be too damn sophisticated to make money in an upwards market like this. So again, man, that's where you want to save your money for because that's where it can work for you quite easily. In this area right here, I mean, unless if you're like super long term and it's a very small portion of your capital, it's probably not all that worth it. Don't really want to be letting that precious capital go during this period.
Yeah, I agree, and for me, what we talk about all the time is within my personal projects as well as just in my own personal finances is it's all about the next cycle. It's all about understanding
Right.
how to manage risk in this cycle. It's all about sort of locking things in for the most part because if you were gambling and you were saying over the last year, you know, 10 times out of 10 it's gone down. So let's go ahead and bet on it going up now. It's just a hard bet to place, like what if you went to someone and said, "Yeah, the last 10 times in a row that that anyone put a bet in, it went down," or the last 100, the last pretty much almost over a year now, the last 365 days that someone put a bet in, it's gone down pretty much. Would you bet on this? I'd say you'd have to be pretty you'd have to be a really big gambler to want to
You gotta
take
be
that
pretty
bet.
degenerate for that, man. But yeah, it's one of those things. It aligns perfectly with that saying, "The trend is your friend until the end of the trend." And this trend has been straight down since about a little bit over a year ago. So again, it works until it doesn't, man. It works until it doesn't, and that's really all it has to be.
Well, I thank you very much. So, just to recap, the three things that you think mark the bottom of the Bitcoin bear market. Could you recap those really quickly?
Yeah, let's go through it really quick. We got the weekly right here. If the weekly can both open and close a full candlestick above this 4100 level, then that would be very impressive. I would drastically change my overall tune on Bitcoin if that were to happen. The next and significantly more important would be the monthly 21 exponential getting taken out. That's all the way at 5200 at the current moment in time. If we can even just close above there, that would be good enough for me. And then of course, getting above 6000 would be the final frontier, but you're probably going to know beforehand. So those would be the big three things. As long as Bitcoin has not done that, I still just look at this as consolidation in an overall downwards trend.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Crown. Any final parting words for the FUD TV audience? And as usual, we very much so appreciate your appearance here.
Let's see. Can I get my camera to work over here? Yeah, I mean, it's always a pleasure being here, man. I've really enjoyed meeting a lot of people from the FUD Nation, coming over to my channel and just being super, super cool, very understanding, and actually just really wanting to learn, which is really refreshing. Actually, it's really motivating for myself as well, man, to meet all the people. So again, please keep on reaching out. It's awesome to meet a lot of all the new people. It's been awesome meeting you, Elliot, as well, man, getting on here. And yeah, man, just a pleasure as always, man. Pleasure as always.
Thank you so much, Mr. Crown. He'll be back soon, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I know I certainly did. I never stop learning from this guy, Eric Crown, a truly deep well of expertise and knowledge. Let me know what you guys thought about the episode in the comments section below. And of course, if you're not already subscribed to FUD TV, click that little sub button and hit that little bell notification. That way you're made aware whenever we put out new content. And of course, make sure to go follow Eric Crown over at Crown's Crypto Cave, which is linked in the description of the video. I'm Elio Trades, you're watching FUD TV, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.